white ship, meaning Shirofune, depart from Japan. I hope you like the history and the inspiration. And I started programming to replicate all the manual work done by these human as managers. By the time we launched the Shirofune, I had spent over 20,000 hours coding day and night. Because I had almost no revenue for 3 years, all I could afford was one bowl of Yoshinoya beef bowl. This is the cheapest food you can buy in Japan. It was, of course, it was not enough, but when you are a startup, we need to get by with a little. And other members joined me, and we started dominating the Japanese market. Today, fortunately, I could afford 3 Yoshinoya boards a day. And for more than 10 years since launching Shirofune, I have improved our algorithm every single day, and I'm still continue to improve it today. Even with the rise of LLMs and AI agents, there is still work that only our algorithm can automate, because LLMs can learn knowledge about ad operations from the web, but LLMs cannot gain the real experience by taking responsibility for active campaigns. The true technology cannot be built from knowledge alone. It requires wisdoms and instincts that come from the years of experience in the field, I believe. Okay, let me share the successful case study with Dentsu. You guys know Dentsu, right? One of the largest advertising agency in the world. And Dentsu reported 54% reduction in workload after adopting Shirofune. Before using Shirofune, their overtime working was kind of social issue in Japan. They solved that problem by using Shirofune. With using Shirofune, they doubled their productivity, and they solved the problem. And let's find out where this 54% came from. And 45% on bid and budget management, 62% on client reporting, 41% on strategy and planning. These are all very significant results. And the key takeaway is that you already have a way to make your business more profitable while enabling your people, your talent, to focus on more valuable work. That is very important. Hearing the previous sessions, you agency have to care about the talent and make them shine. So to make them shine, we need to eliminate their boring day-to-day the task that is not so valuable for your clients. So our platform can help that. And you can start today this journey. And the success has already been replicated with.
Appreciate Mitsu coming from Japan. So thank you for coming to visit us. Okay, next track, generating growth. For those of you who know me, you know that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Growth has become harder. I don't think anybody's going to disagree. Not necessarily because opportunities are fewer, but because the rules have changed. This track is going to focus on how independent agencies can close the gap between what clients say, what they value and reward, to compete more effectively regardless of size. So to start, clients don't always say what they mean, and agencies don't always hear what's being said and what's needed. Casey Burnett, Managing Director of the Burnett Collective, will reveal what truly drives client decisions what gets agencies hired or replaced, and why great work. Okay, just don't throw the microphone.
There we go. Maybe. All right. I didn't actually hear the intro, so my whole thing was like, thanks for the intro, but I actually didn't hear it, so thank you for the intro. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to actually speak in front of everyone here. I promise there will be a moment where I do this to talk, and so you'll probably have a few cutout points through this. When Matt asked if I would speak, we batted around a few ideas of what a good topic would be, simply because I want to give value back to agencies. You all, as part of our process through our RFPs, give us a lot of time, effort, lots of money through the process is spent, so hopefully through this session we'll give something a little bit back. And batting around some ideas, what Matt and I talked about was, do we have a clicker? Thank you. A lot of you know us as search consultants in this room. You've met with some of us yesterday. We've had some of you in RFPs. But search is actually about 30% of what we do at the Burnett Collective. Most of the time, we actually are sitting around a table talking with our CMO clients around things like, what should my org structure be? Where should I put my next dollar? What should my budget allocation be? Yes, there's a lot of things around agency roster, and all of that flows into kind of how you work as a client with your agency and what some of those best practices are. In other words, we kind of sit in this space where we kind of act as a liaison between clients and managing their agencies. And with that comes a lot of decisions in terms of, that's not the first slide. A lot of it comes to this gap that I'm going to talk about, which is that ultimately what clients say, what they need, and what they value often are not either aligned or really kind of heard in the same way. They're not the same. I'm sure that's not a surprise to many of you in this room, right? How many of you have gone to a briefing, or excuse me, how many of you have answered a brief, and ultimately you came out of that meeting, whether it was a pitch or it was just, presenting campaign work, and you thought, man, we nailed that. And then the next day, or maybe like 3 weeks later, you get feedback from the client, and you're like, wait, were we in the same meeting? Right? Maybe that feedback was a little confusing. Maybe it was a little cryptic. You kind of wonder, like, wow, did they really get it? That's that gap. So I want to talk about kind of 5 truths, kind of 5 common gaps that we see that are consistent across clients, they're consistent across industry. Doesn't really matter what industry it is. We call them truths, we can call them gaps. There's way more than 5. We can talk about 5 through 10 over coffee. We can talk about 10 through 100 over cocktails. There's a lot of them. But we identified 5 because Matt only gave me 10, 15 minutes. But I think what's interesting about these truths is that as independent, smaller agencies in this room, I think you're actually really quite equipped to addressing these versus your holding company counterparts. So let's jump into it. All right. So clients say, I feel like I'm like on Family Feud. Clients say, we value your work and insights. And look, all of these are actual truths. That's why they're called truths. But there's a little bit of something behind the something, right? So it's true. They do value your work. But the reality is that a lot of the time, decisions are shaped elsewhere. I often tell agencies that there's 100 different reasons why a client does something, whether it is select an agency or whether it is select a campaign. and agencies control about 10 to 20 of those factors, right? True story, I sat in a boardroom. I won't tell you which client it was, but I will tell you it was in Detroit, so that narrows it down. And we sat in a boardroom at the end of a pitch process. Every single person around that table, and let me tell you, there's a lot of them, way too many people trying to make a decision, said that they agreed that agency A was the best agency throughout the entire pitch and had the best work. In the same breath that they all agreed that, they all agreed that they were going to hire agency B because it was easier to sell into the organization. Senior, super senior CMO level conversation, and it went to, can I sell this decision in? The agency that kind of frames that decision, helps the client sell things in, stays closer to the decision and ultimately wins. Clients say, what's the strategy? Everyone in this room knows. They've heard it before. We also know that what that really means is, how does this impact the business? Lots of agencies, we heard it yesterday in elevator speeches, we hear it in credential presentations all the time. We want to be your strategic business partner. The fact of the matter is, very few have actually made that transition. There's a big difference between having marketing insights and analytics and actually being a true business partner. Because of this, and we know that CMOs are being held to even more standard than they have been. Plenty of articles about that. We don't have to talk about it. I'm seeing more jump balls as part of briefing process, not just as an RFP, but in client agency management. I hate it. I think it's a bad practice. I will go on record for saying that. But it's happening more and more because the CMO and VPs of marketing have to show the impact to the business. Another true story. Travel client, right? Puts out a brief, rebrand. We just came through COVID. We've had a big change in the industry. What's our next move? Long-standing agency answers the brief, answers it exceptionally well. Could have ran the work in the market the next day. It was gorgeous. The other agency completely reframed the brief. Told us we weren't even playing in the right game. They gave us a whole new board game and told us where to put the chips. And that's the agency that ultimately got the business. The clients are looking for more direction, clear action, and prioritization, right? That's always the question that the clients are looking for, is help us prioritize where we put our funds. This is a fun one because I'm sure you've all heard this. This is feedback from clients at some point in time. It's also, I think, in every single RFP I've written in the last 4 years. It's like some sort of litmus test that clients like to use as, does this agency think about me all the time? What they're actually thinking and saying is, I want a strategic business partner with an outside perspective. That sounds really kind of generic and high level. What's behind that is, what they really want to know is, what are we currently doing that we should be doing differently? What's actually working, and where are we falling apart? The fact of the matter is, most of my conversations with CMOs at the Fortune 200 level and above, budgets are already allocated. They're already being asked to give money back. We don't have money to go out and spend on creative that already wasn't planned. So CMOs, and they're asking it, I get it, they're asking it. They're saying, bring me new creative ideas. What they're really saying is, what are we doing now that we shouldn't be doing so that we can do something else to try? There's no doubt, look, capitalizing on trends and being innovative and all of that stuff is super important. That's why we're doing this. But we have to do that in the context of the plan and then tell the clients where we should be moving pieces on the board. All right, clients say we need great work. That's an obvious one. It's why we love working with agencies. You all do great work. We've seen it. We saw it yesterday. And that is true. Great work wins. But so does ease and efficiency and responsiveness and trust and a whole host of other adjectives that don't fit on the slide when the font's that big. So, you know, being great at doing the work doesn't make you a CMO's favorite partner. The number of times that we have conversations with a CMO that says, yeah, we really love the work, we just can't work with them. We've actually gone through with our clients and replaced plenty of A-list agencies that the work is great, that they get notoriety for, to turn around and hire another great agency that still produces great work. In fact, there was one in the financial services category that when we swapped over, we still got great work, and then 2 years later, they got an Effie. And why? Because the client says it's easy to work there. We have a better partnership. There's more trust. We can have the dialogues that we never had before. So great work gets you in the door, but how you work with the client is what keeps you on the roster. Last one, this is a fun one for me because I live this one too, right? Clients, they always say, well, I know I owe you feedback. Part of that is true. Part of that is because they're busy, right? You're not the only priority. They have people like me that are barking on their doors and trying to solve things. You're one of many. We're one of many. But a lot of the time, what that is also is just a delay, right? Trying to figure out how to make the decision. And if we circle back to the very first one, where decisions are happening away from agency and CMO or decision maker, the agencies that can figure out how to keep the train moving, do it quickly, do it with less friction with their clients, those are the ones that are winning and getting work done. Keep that momentum of that really great meeting as opposed to letting those 2 weeks go by where the CMO is getting hit by the CFO, by the CEO, by everybody else in the organization. Ask questions, because I think you'd probably rather ask me questions than hear me talk about 5 more truths.
Well, we do have some questions, and then we can also talk about truths. But, all right. Okay, how much time do CMOs think about agencies and agencies' work, the work that agencies do?
I would say if we're in campaign development, it is 30 to 40% of the time. If we're not, it's maybe 15 at the highest.
Okay, thank you. You kind of answered it, but because the question came in, why won't clients give feedback if we lose or win?
They don't want to be seen as being bad guys. I will tell you that, right? That's part of the reason why we give feedback, or they give us the feedback to give. They don't want to be seen as being the bad guys. I will say that even if there were 15 clients standing in this room. Also, I do find, and I would still say this, even in front of my own clients are really bad at giving feedback, which is why agencies that are able to tease that out are the ones that I find have those strongest relationships. It's a lost art. I wish that more clients were better at giving feedback. They're just not.
All right. Do clients typically come to you predisposed to hiring an independent agency versus a holding company, or vice versa?
No, they don't. So we get that question a lot from agencies of all sorts of size. Most of, as I alluded to this earlier, most of our searches stem from work that we're doing with the CMO around agency roster, around budget exercises, around scopes of work. So most of the time, clients are coming to us to have a higher level conversation. We very rarely actually get the conversation from procurement that's like, hey, I need to replace run a review, and I need to replace agency A with agency B. Most of the work that we do is trying to sit down with the CMOs to figure out exactly what the work is that needs to get done, and from that stage we can decide, does budget allow, what's the most important criteria? Is it scale? Is it size? Is it location? Right? All clients have different needs and they use different criteria. So no, the answer to that is very rarely have I ever had a client be like, I will not work with an independent agency. Right now, I think there's a lot of kicking tires. I'm interested in what indies bring to the table because of all the consolidation. But even that at the higher level, kind of the Fortune 100, 200 level that we tend to work, those clients are not necessarily open to pulling everything, and it's moving to more of a project base.
Okay, here's the last question. We have time for one more, and there are a lot of questions now coming in. So again, as we said, we are capturing these questions. I'm going to turn to you later on. We'll answer them, get them into our report.
And I'll be around, so.
Thank you. Clients always want to meet the team in a pitch process, but often small to mid-sized indies need to hire staff for the win. What's your recommendation here?
There's not a single agency out there that I'm aware of that has bench strength that is just going to jump in on the account, because we know that doesn't happen.
All right. Casey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please welcome Jeff Quick, Anson Birch, and Mitch Bennett.
To work with budgets, so it definitely stuck in my head as, oh, here's a possible team. I would show the creatives and just kind of, familiarize everybody with it, right? So showing them the work, communicating the benefits financially, creatively, but then it moves into numbers, because in large global brands, numbers are what people pay attention to. So I would reach out and say, get some proof of concept numbers, like, hey, if we did this project, what would that look like? And these are the kind of things that really get you the opportunity.
Yeah, and that was a 2 or 3 year process while Anson with the SAS, but I've known him for quite some time, and there have been 3 or 4 jobs that each of us have had where we've tried to make this happen before. He's invited me to a pitch at an agency that I was at that we lost fair and square. But it didn't feel like wasted time. It felt like, okay, the time's not right now, but this guy is an advocate for the kind of work that we do, and something's going to work out. We'll help him, he'll help us, something's going to happen, and this will be a good relationship.
Yeah, none of it's ever wasted effort. In fact, it's really where we've doubled down on our growth in our pipeline, is having conversations, not pitches, with creative folks that we've met or worked with over the years. And it has really led to a lot of different opportunities for us that we're really excited about.
And you can't give up if it doesn't happen right away. Like, it really is playing the long game. There's lots of reasons why. But what's really funny about this seeding is that basically everyone ignores you until they don't. We were in a meeting with the CMO. She came in. We've had some budget challenges. We've had some rearranging. But you know what? I really want those creative brand spots. How are we going to get great creative work, but on a much smaller budget? And suddenly everyone in the room turned and looked at me. And it took me a second to realize that it had worked, because I've been talking about it for a year.
Yeah, and it didn't work because we had come in and said, hey, you have a huge holding company agency, we want to replace them, we want them out of there. We didn't do that at all. In fact, we started with, Anson just asked, hey, I think we're starting to talk about radio. Do you have a point of view on B2B for radio? So we did that and gave it to him, and a year and a half passed, and then suddenly this came up, and it was big brand B2B TV for that was funny, and so that really helped us. It helped them because we were able to do it in a more nimble way that I know we're all good at talking about here as independent agencies. But that's always been the way we do it. We never ask for, we want the big juicy assignment everyone wants. We always go in saying, hey, we're here to do whatever you guys need, and it could be some very small thing. And rather than spend all our time pitching for free, we're working on smaller projects that are paid and then leveling them up We used to work at an agency together, and there was one small relationship with Coke. There was
help us crack the idea, or we help them improve on an idea they have, or as because we're a production company as well, we help them produce their idea. It also comes from brands that need quicker, smaller, more senior creative and production teams in addition to their current agency. And then the other opportunity for us that's really helping us right now are agencies, both creative agencies who want to hire us as a production company and media agencies who need a creative agency.
And from the brand side, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for success, right? Because, you know, if you need that global work that can do it, there's an agency AOR that's going on. Or you need a specialty in a certain country. There might be a regional agency that you're familiar with working on. But you need to have access to all those resources, and it doesn't come from just one large holding company or one agency. And so you're setting yourself up for success by having these relationships with creative agencies that you trust. One of the things that is really important is that the work sells more work. And so by getting these guys in and starting small and pitching B2B radio and showing examples, that builds on it, and it also gets everybody very comfortable with them as an entity and working with them.
Yeah, and it's not just, you're probably thinking like, well, that's nice. You know Anson, and Anson's really helped guide you through this giant corporation. And that is very, very true. But it also works with people we haven't known quite as well, like just people we've worked with in the past, or those kind of connections have brought us in. And we're in our second year working on big Home Depot TV spots. We're doing, working with Walk On Sports Bistro and racetrack gas stations. And so it's been the same way of just finding an advocate who knows how to get us through the process and then helping make them look good, hopefully. So that's kind of the trick.
What does an advocate do, right? Like, what does this advocate do inside of the brand? You really need somebody to help smooth the way. So you've heard me talk about planting the seed, showing the work, kind of familiarizing everybody. But an advocate's job is really risk management, so internally getting everybody comfortable. There's the seeding and the pre-selling that I talked about. But then once we can start talking about getting them in, like, you can't throw them to the wolves. You can't just throw Jeff into procurement, you know, or the legal. These things, you need somebody on the brand side to kind of hold your hand and walk you through these processes just to make it smoother and easier, because I promise it's really tough. Then you've got all your internal stakeholders, the internal agency, the creative teams. They've got opinions. They might even get a little defensive. And so it really helps if you can have an advocate for you and someone that you're communicating with to help kind of smooth the way and just really prepare everybody and say, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. And it's really about managing risk. And so doing all these things really set the project up for success, because I'd been seeding the work, because I'd gotten everybody familiar, because we'd brought the estimates in ahead of time. Everyone felt comfortable, say, because I can't walk into the CMO's office and go, hey, I got these guys, guest house, you've never heard of them, but they're going to do a great job. You know, that's not going to work. So having that advocate on the inside is really key to help smooth the way.
And Anson did a great job of that. And you know, really on the procurement side, I mean, for an agency our size, that can be a real tough process. And he calls us up and he says, hey, you know, give me what you want in the MSA first, and I'll help you do that. And so for us, that's really what's important. So again, what Anson did, it's not just finding the right advocate that can get you in the door, but then prepping each other all along the way throughout the whole process. And that's the job that Anson did.
And you may not have that advocate. I know you may be sitting there going, well, I don't know that person. I don't have that advocate. But, you know, Mitch has done a lot of work finding them and developing them.
Yeah, just the guidance through the corporate process helps so much. Yeah, and Anson's the best. Don't talk to our Anson too much. Come talk to us.
But it is possible to develop those advocates. Keep in touch with people you've known in the past. Those relationships are very important.
And they come from all levels of the organization, right? So yeah, certainly your COs and CMOs leverage those relationships. But for us, it's been creative relationships at different organizations or past agency relationships. And those oftentimes will be the best advocates for you within the organization, not just getting you in, but helping you sell the work and create the work. But no, I mean, I guess, with that, like, we always ask, what can you do? We have our anthem, but, think about your untraditional pipeline. For us, it's focusing more on creative people in the industry. You develop your advocate. Think about the work as the pitch process. Yes, you have your pitches, but the work that you do is the pitch. And you got to be patient. It's a long game. So a lot of the opportunities we're talking about and the conversations we're happening, they're not instant gratification. They're not like for your pipeline this month, this year. Some of them are 1 year, 2 year, 3 years later. So,
or 20 in this case. Any questions?
I'd say quite a few. All right, let's see. Start with okay. Boy, several of them have been up to bid. So when you're trying to get your foot in the door with a project, do you ever bring some spec work to surprise and delight? What percentage of your new biz is big brand?
That's a great question. So, the spec work, honestly, a lot of the meetings we have, because we do traditional pitches, but a lot of them are conversations. So we're meeting with them over several times, having a conversation about their business, our business. We talk who we are, and a lot of times it's not spec work. We get a project, and what we say is we want to start out with a project, and then we grow the relationship from there. So our first assignment is generally paid.
And the way we get to that is often by we just listen really well to what the clients are saying. We don't like talking about ourselves. You see, we didn't show any slides. We hate that. It cringed us out about working at agencies. So we'd listen, and then the thing that we'd bring, rather than like, here's the campaign we want to do that's going to get us to win at Cannes, it's like, here's just one simple idea that's pretty cool that proves that we were listening to you. And that's been working really, really well.
From the brand side, I am the number one advocate for creativity. It is so crucial and so important. And I don't want to throw cold water on this, but really what moved the numbers inside of my company was estimates. The first thing, I definitely showed the work. I got people familiar with the creative. But what made those conversations happen and made people think of it was getting those, hey, if we were to do 3 15-second TV spots about what would that be, and I would bring estimates to people in hard numbers, because that's what a lot of people care about. Now, the work is great, show the work, but also be prepared to do some sort of spec estimates that may not get made, but at least they know the numbers.
Great, thank you. Next question. Can you share some feedback your clients have said as it relates to the advantages of working with an independent shop of your size versus the giants?
I've got one. We
develop an advocate if we don't have one.
We thought this question might come. It is really hard. We go way back in our buds, so that's cheating, right? But the same thing, like we're pitching or putting costs in front of a large insurance company, and that was through a friend of a friend who he worked in the organization. He knew they had a thing. We're not super close with him, but he knew our story and said, well, I know how you could get this done in a smarter way. And so they invited us to do a bid on what they described as their dirty DRTV that no one wants to do. And they couldn't get their agency to do it. And we're like, we'll Google that and then do it for you. And so we put a bid together, and they looked at the bid, and then they said, well, forget about that. Can you do a bid to do our real campaign, our main brand campaign? And they're this huge company. And we're like, why, yes, we'll be happy to do that.
That's great. Last question. What new business approaches have worked best for outreach? Phone calls, referrals?
Face-to-face meetings. Honestly, our best approach has been going where Mitch is saying is literally when we do our new business meetings weekly, we're not going through like, okay, here's like everything that's in the pipeline right today. No, it's like, who do we need to reach out to? Who do we need to get a meeting with? Who do we need to have lunch with? And again, those are conversations. They're not pitches where we're putting decks in front of them. We're just having conversations to learn about their business and them to learn about ours. And that's what's leading to most of our growth right now.
And timing is everything, timing and persistence, because I can't tell you meet with somebody, you're like, oh, this would be great, but I don't have anything right now. And then again, until suddenly you do. And so those people that you're talking to at those big brands, they may slightly brush you off, or they may say, I'm too busy, or I don't have time, or I don't need anything right now. But you know what? In 2 months, they're going to need something. And if you're top of mind, if you've been doing a good job on that mental availability, they're going to think of you. So it is about timing. Don't get discouraged. If you meet but nothing happens, just follow up in 3 months and see what happens then.
And just going back to the untraditional pipeline we talked about earlier, ours is talking to creative people in the industry, a lot of them who are in-house now. And so that's been a big part of our growth, and what we do is talking to in-house creative teams that need support and help, that a lot of agencies are directly focused on the marketing team, the CMO, which we are too, but we're getting in the door through creatives that are in-house.
Terrific. Well, thank you very, very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Please welcome Chris Novak and T.S. Kelly.
Good afternoon. My name's T.S. Kelly, Mr. Chris Novak. Thank you very much for this time. Actually, go back a slide. There we go. There we go. That's my fault. It's really good to be here, with one exception. Game one's tonight. I'm gonna have to hide somewhere and see it. I don't know, in enemy territory. So. You wanna go? Sure. Oh, really? Okay. Maybe I'll do that then. I don't know. Okay, but thank you. Anyway, again, we're here to talk about analytics. Now almost I'm fixated on game one here. But Chris and I, both former Holdco veterans in various places, we worked together since 2019, pre-COVID, at Dentsu. And it really came down to the title of this discussion is that we were charged in many ways to put analytics at the heart of the process. And then sometimes that wasn't just obviously about pitches, but that was pretty much the core of it. But it came down to people, process, and obviously, pitches, all in the sake of helping with, client business challenges. But subsequently, both of us left Holdco land. You went on to Eden, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and I went on to work at Arima, a startup specifically focused on data creation and software development, supporting the agency workflow. We do that in a couple different ways, 3 different ways. One of them is attribution, measuring outcomes. Second is specifically focused on forecasting, so different types of modules and tools that do that. And then finally, something that we just partnered and co-authored a white paper with the 4As and did a webinar on the 21st of May, a few weeks back, on the practical uses of synthetic data in agency workflows. So something, again, it's in your show notes, if you will, but check that out. But more importantly, handing it off to you is that what you're doing right now is what we're trying to support, your workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eden Collective is a planning, strategy, and analytics shop that is a consultancy that really helps brands and agencies alike. And whenever we think about analytics as a growth engine, it's actually part of the genesis of Eden. The company was founded in 2019 by my partner Allison, but she was just doing planning and strategy at that time, and everyone was coming to her and saying, "Hey, well, it's great planning, great strategy, but what's it actually going to deliver? What's it going to do for my business?" And so she brought me on as a partner in 2021, and we came together. At that point, we had maybe 3 people on 1099s. Now we have 14 people on W-2s. We continue to see the growth, and the growth is coming from that analytics, right? It's coming from the fact that we're doing exactly what her vision was, which is here's a great plan, here's a strategy, but more importantly, here's what it's going to do for your business.
I guess that's a mic drop right there. I'm gonna put so forth. But more importantly, this conversation is more about the what and how this should be relevant or could be relevant for your organizations. So trying to break that what into two camps. There's a lot of fine organizations here that haven't really gone on the analytics journey or focused on strategy, perhaps some various folks' approaches towards data management, et cetera. And then there's, even from all the conversations I've been listening to and being part of here, very impressive organizations that have already gone on that journey and what they can do to perhaps level up. So we'll try to cover something in both camps, both sides. We're going to break up. He's got 6 principles, which are kind of fun and cool pictures, and breaking it up into 3 different components. And even the battles that we fought together in Holdco land and bringing this, I think, into much more of a, this has to be easier, which was always the conversation we had. Breaking into 3 things: credibility, and then another stage when we talk about proving it. So getting into rigor and validation, and then finally making the move, if you will. And again, that has a lot of different connotations as far as how you go about proving that you've got what it takes as an organization to do both, as Matt likes to say, both hearts and minds. So, all right, first really cool picture. Analytics isn't a service line; it's a credibility engine. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I think this is the first step of the process, which is how do we define analytics? I feel like it's got a nebulous kind of element to it where it's anything dealing with numbers, or it's my web analytics only. But the way that we need to be thinking about it isn't just like, here's a service line that exists to deliver against some buying model, but in fact, it's the credibility engine for your entire agency. And how is it the credibility engine? You're going into any pitch, any meeting for that matter, with numbers. And those numbers make you credible. And what's that credibility do? And the numbers do? It holds you accountable, right? So whenever you go to a client and you have a big idea and you're a master of your craft, and you're saying, I'm going to do this, I'm super psyched, they're into it, you put some numbers behind it as well. Now you've got accountability. They like that. People like it whenever you hold yourselves accountable.
Wait, and we've been working together for several years. You do this on a couple of different tracks. I mean, you clearly work with brands directly, but you're also doing this in a unique way, which again, from my point of view. So what that other track is.
Yeah. So the other track that we do is we work with agencies as well. For us, it's kind of nice in this indie world. It's good to break out of Holdco land and then realize that instead of being stuck having to buy from within your Holdco, you can go out and get the best talent. You can bring together the best minds. And so whenever we're going to deliver, what am I going to go in there and make an SOW that's all about the novellas that I'm going to write for you and stay up late nights coming up with my next idea for the novel?
Right.
Like, you're never going to sell that.
Right.
But you have to sell something, right? So you kind of, it comes through the guise of dashboards. It comes through the guise of like physical brute force, work that you can do, but you have to deliver on what they actually want,
right?
Which is the story, and that's the element that no matter how much you like pound on Claude's not coming out with a phenomenal narrative structure. It'll try to like mash up the hero's journey to whatever you're doing, but
it's been said a few times earlier today just about the lack of context. You can say it, but what does it really mean? So again, I'm assuming that's what you mean by that. So it's really got there's no context, or rather, that's really the battle that you're trying to
exactly.
provide.
Well, there's no amount of context that you can provide an LLM or even a dashboard to that matter, right? Like there's dashboards I think are really great for the junior level folks to like keep things in mind. But why do they want the dashboards? So they can report up, right? So that they can tell the stories. So that way they can let the business know what's actually happening. Right. So you can jump right to that.
Right. Well, the clock ticking. What's again that I could sit on this one. I have more SOWs I read where one of the bullet points was dashboard. So it was like output for output's sake, and versus say what was the KPI or what was the, so forth. All right, let's move on to rigor and validation and lead with business impact. Again, actually, this is one of my favorite ones because it's usually not just about getting the business, it's about keeping it, but following it. Follow with how you move it.
Yeah, well, and I think it's important here because all of us, we might have different crafts that we're specializing in that you might say, well, I'm going to have an impact on the business, but it's not going to be the thing that really drives, the totality of it because my, piece of the universe. But that's where I'd say question that and go deeper on, well, should that still be relevant, right? I should still understand what's going on with the business because I think that's the best context that you have whenever it comes to looking at the work that you're providing.
Did you ever see and going back, this was this weekend, every weekend, if we have the time, there's always a movie to watch or whatever, so usually my wife's in charge of that, but I snuck in an old Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn movie called Desk Set. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but just in thinking of all the ways that we're having challenges between what AI should do or not do within organizations, it just seems that a movie from 1957 is still relevant nearly 70 years later. But so you're not an answer department then?
No. I mean, the answer is now, right? Like, when you think to like what you're delivering with analytics, like nobody really wants. I'm trying to figure out who really wants the dashboards. They want the raw data. They're sending it into their LLMs and getting the answers out of it. But that's why it's even more important to have that business context, so that way you can answer those questions first and really tell them what you're doing. Otherwise, they're going to develop the story around you, right? Yeah. It's they're going to say. They're going to come up with some kind of feeling, and if you're not there telling the story, they're going to develop it, and that can put you in a bad light.
All right, walk in with a hypothesis, not a cred stack. All right, Mr. Analytics person.
Well, no, this is what's exciting because this is science, right? So we have this is the true science, and the ability that we have today to actually come in with something, showing up to dinner with a bottle of wine, we can do that. And this is what I like about working with Arima, right? So if I have a prospect, I don't know anything about them. Before my first meeting, I can pull syndicated data to understand how much did they spend on a weekly basis by channel. Awesome. Now I can find a response variable. I can take a look at their Google Trends. Are people searching for them? How's that demand changing? I can pull up Arima, do a media mix model, cranks out in about 10 minutes. Now I actually have a hypothesis. I understand something. I'm adding value to their data and actually telling a story instead of just showing up with, all right, I saw this data. I see you're spending this much here. They already know that, right? But I can come in with an actual hypothesis and say, I see whenever your demand changed, and I have a hypothesis as to why. You might be right, you might be wrong, but that's not what matters.
It's funny, too, is that many times you don't get the sales data, or you're going on a trust journey, not just an analytics or a measurement journey. And trust journey sometimes starts, they're not giving you their sales data, so you've got to do something. You got to find a proxy, right?
Well, I think trust comes back to the credibility, right? Like, off the bat, people do have a hard time trusting you. They don't want to find out that you're just throwing their data into like an open LLM and then it's out there. But I've never met a client who, after you've shown some level of aptitude and interest in their business, to not just hand you all their data and say, I can't figure it out, get that needle. Here's the haystack, you get the needle, and then you're off to the races.
All right, let's move on to the last one. We've got 8 minutes left here. Making the move, and this isn't like some Seinfeld episode. This is like, the real move here is that specifically you don't, and I love, this is my favorite picture of the group just based on who that is, right? And you can tell people who it is. Anyone in the audience know who that is? You get a gold star. You don't need a team. You need one person who can tell a story.
And I think that's kind of the key here, right? Like, I think the way you can approach analytics can either be from this brute force, like building it, like I can do work, I can charge you for work, and that's great, but really what people want are those stories. And so that's where the starting point, comes from. And, and thank you for, putting up with all the art that, we were able to put
Well, we could have done Maplethorpe and probably gotten some really bad eyes, but who's that gentleman actually? Just
Matisse.
There you go.
But, this comes from my art school background. Which, it's interesting, in this world where I double majored in math and film, the math got me into the role, but the film is really what's driving the amount of work that I'm doing now, right? Because it's the stories that people want to hear.
There was something that when we talked about this previously too, is that sometimes you get involved in part of an organization, and this even came up in some of the really interesting conversations that have happened. Some of the other vendors and certainly some of the other agencies have talked about integration. Is that it's not that analytics is at the end of the process. It's like some kind of end result. It's certainly something more.
Well, and I think that's part of it, right? It's having that person who knows how to integrate analytics into the story and is willing to make that happen.
Right.
Because it is important to have as part of the story. You know what the questions are you're going to be asked. So make sure that you're there, able to answer them.
Right. Well, that leads us to actually we've got pretty good time here. So the last slide before we get into kind of more like the direct question. Put analytics in the pitch, and this is something I experienced in many different ways in doing 30 pitches in 4+ years, is that not getting called in at the last minute, but put analytics in the pitch, not in the appendix.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I think a lot of this does stem from like Holdco PTSD.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, we got a pitch tomorrow, get a pro forma. We just need to show them a number.
It's like, this is a really cool war room. I wish I was in here 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, we're not going to get to your slides. But more than ever, just get there.
Well, there's a lot of lemonade from that too. Is that sometimes you get a compelling conversation that if you did get into the conversation earlier on, then it is talking about making sure the measurement framework fits into the rest of the narrative. Correct? So
absolutely. Because if it's on its own, kind of stepping back to that first principle, right? Yeah. It can't just live on its own. It has to be integrated. It has to be an element, of the story, and the data is what's building out those pieces of the story.
There's obviously lots of different flavors to having analytics practice within an organization. You said something earlier, which is funny, but if you were talking to some of the folks in the room here specifically that have never or haven't really looked at an analytics practice within their organization, what advice would you give them as far as starting out?
So it's interesting because I feel like, talking about mergers and acquisitions, the build versus buy, right? Like, what do you do, and how can you make it happen? I think that analytics is unique in the fact that you want someone who understands numbers but also understands the story. It's something that, with the right person, right? Yeah, you could build, but it has to start by figuring out what it's going to do in that first definition of analytics, which isn't, I'm just going to have someone come in here and clean up my data, and then I'm going to find some stories in my data. If you take a bottoms-up approach, you're going to fail at that. It has to come, top down. Has to be someone who has your domain expertise.
This is starting the party. I love it. Let's keep the party going. So I want to start with a confession. I've never been an agency CEO. Somehow I thought it was a good idea to tell you what you're doing wrong. And it occurs to me I've never actually sat in your seat. So what makes me the guy? Well, I do. I have been in the agency review business for 35 years, and when I started in the business, there were no new business people. So I dealt directly with CEOs and presidents. And I was a young kid. And the reason I became a search consultant, or I took a job at a consultancy, was so I can meet people like you and learn where to go to work. I accidentally stayed there for 10 years. During that time, I met a lot of CEOs, and they became mentors. A lot of them became friends. And after 35 years, there's a new crop of CEOs. Love to see you guys. I'm friends with many of you. And so while I've never been an agency CEO, I do run a business, and I've been hanging out with people like you for 35 years, and so I've been watching you carefully. I thought this would be, the topic is not up there. Here we go. My topic today is 10 ways agency CEOs sabotage their own growth. And since we only have 15 minutes, we probably should just get right into it. Here we go. Number 10, countdown, like Letterman. Great job. I don't actually have 10. I only have 8. But really, while we're on the topic, I do want to stop and say, really, great job. Most of you are very successful CEOs, owners, operators, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, the 8 things, 7 of them come from observing you and also from having made the same mistake. And the 8th one, I just haven't come around to it yet, but I will. So here we go. Number 8. Oh, I forgot we had to change the title. Here we go. Number 8, saying yes to everything. Now, most CEOs that I know how to say no. but I'm talking specifically about new business. And sometimes the pipeline is really rich. Sometimes it's just good. And during those times, you can't get greedy about it. You really need to think through, where do I have license to win? If I were the client, would I hire us? Will I have access to the client? So you really need to be choosy, otherwise you're going to get into a lot of busy work, create a lot of strain in the organization, not pick up much business, and begin finger pointing. So it doesn't really lead to anything good. So be judicious about when you say yes in new business. By the way, since I only have 8, if we do finish early, I'll be happy to take lots of questions. Or I can just keep embellishing. Number 7, believing more services equals more value. Now, there are a lot of agencies out there who claim to be integrated agencies or full service agencies, and those two things are not really the same. A full service agency might have multiple services, but an integrated agency uses those services on behalf of, across the board for each of their clients, or where possible. And having more services, clients don't always believe that you have the best in class of everything. So there are those that are going to go out and get a different digital agency, a different media agency, a different creative agency, so on and so forth. And there are going to be those that really look for integration. And the ones that are looking for integration are not necessarily looking for an agency that has a number of services, but we need proof that those services are actually being combined to amplify results. Moving on. Believing visibility will actually lead to growth. I've got this problem too. I've been on the circuit talking to people like you. I post on LinkedIn, I write articles. It doesn't mean that we're successful. We happen to just be successful, but it doesn't mean. What ends up happening is it leads to a lot of opportunities. And this is related to the first thing about saying yes to everything. And when visibility leads to opportunities and you still haven't really crafted what your story is, and you haven't built the right team, and you're not building the right trust with those partners, you're going to, again, create a lot of busy work. Number 5, this one is a little provocative, hiring for experience. You probably think I'm crazy. Yes, you want to hire people for experience. But I've seen over and over where a CEO really wants to hire what they deem to be the best creative director, what they deem to be the best new business director, what they deem to be the best media director, whatever it is. And so you put together all these superstars and you expect them to all row in the same boat. But hiring a collection of superstars doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a team. And so what you get is you get people who work together and who are not necessarily teammates. And I'm not going to belabor that point because the graphic is so special. Number 4. Thinking the final meeting wins the pitch. When I originally wrote this slide, it was actually framed as thinking the creative will win the pitch. But it occurs to me that not all of you are creative agencies. We have all kinds of agencies in the room, but if you do believe that creative wins the pitch, not so much. So there's an entire pathway, right? You're curating an entire experience for the marketer via the process. And every time you have a touch point, even if it's not an elimination round, even if it's just a touch base, even if it's just a Q&A, you're curating an experience and you're being judged. And so after every touch point, client will call me and say, well, those were great questions. I love that agency, or I love that person, or I don't. But really, I would add an analogy to this. For those of you who are married out there, think about why is it that you're married? Is it because of how you proposed or how you were proposed to? No, that new business pitch was won along the way. Number 3, underpricing out of fear. This is in new business specifically. You get to the end of the process, you finally submit your comp proposal, and now you're shaking in your boots because you don't want to lose the business based on price. Well, I've worked on over 500 agency reviews and helped over 1,000 clients actually redo their contracts. I have never in my lifetime seen an agency lose a final pitch based on price alone. There's usually some kind of, what's that? There's usually some kind of sort of limit of acceptability, if you will. And if you've gone beyond that limit, we're going to call you. We're going to say, hey, did you understand the scope correctly? And maybe you did, but we only have $3 million. Can we get this? We're going to negotiate. So if you're the agency that's selected, I have never seen a deal not occur. So, and also, if you underprice in the beginning, you're not going to get it later, because the tendency is to squeeze you as you go further along. So do not underprice. Obviously, be fair, but charge what you think it should be. Number 2 is protecting bad revenue. The golden goose with the sharp teeth. I've been here. And this is a really tough situation because you've got a client, maybe it's your biggest client. They put out a lot of revenue. They keep you in business. They keep the lights on. They're frustrating. They're killing your employees. They're killing morale. It's a cancer. I know you don't want to hear this, but if you can't mediate the situation, you're going to have to carve it out and let it go, because this will hold you back and kill your organization. And the number 1 thing that I find, oh, I'm early, I've got 5 minutes left, this is good. I might throw in a bonus one. The number 1 weird thing that you people do is you hire a new business person and then you expect magic. Truth is, I know a lot of organizations that get to about 40, 50 people, and the partners have been doing business development, and they get to a point where they go, oh man, we need a new business person. This is just too active. And the brief tends to be, who do you know out there that's like a number 2 that's maybe ready to be a number 1? And that's really faulty thinking, because that person is not ready to help you usually with your positioning, with your brand storytelling, with your case studies, with your vision. Quite frankly, unless that person is a partner level individual, that's your job, not theirs. And so if you haven't gone through the process of thinking about who you are as an organization and building your team right, a new business person is pretty much the same as putting out advertising for a bad brand. It'll kill you. So if you're going to hire a new business person, I would recommend that it needs to be, if it's your first new business person, I mean, obviously, if you just need blocking and tackling, that's a different story. But if it's your first business development person, this is really counterintuitive, but I would make that person a partner-level individual. Somebody who has the ability to speak with CMOs, somebody who has the ability to make organizational policy. That person doesn't necessarily need to have a CMO kind of title. As a matter of fact, a chief client officer title would be better. Nobody really wants to talk with your salespeople, and if you do get new business people, you can't push you can't push everything on them. You still need to maintain relationships, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse on this one. You know what? Because we have a little time, I'm going to throw in 1A. 1A. I don't have a slide. But I've seen this over and over and over again, and it's particularly true for founder-led organizations. But sometimes in new business, the CEO doesn't know how to shut up. When you suck the end, thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. We do have a couple questions. Yep. All right. First one, what's the best way to navigate new business when the CEO is giving you mixed directions more often than not?
When the agency new business, when the agency CEO is,
It doesn't say, but let's assume that. So what's the best way to navigate new business when let's say the agency CEO is giving you mixed directions more often than not?
that's hard because I don't know where we're being directed to or for what reason or what part of the process. But so I'm not sure I have an answer for that question.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this.
Would you
and
like to
said
take
it.
a crack at it?
Well, no, you said it early on. Can't say yes to everything, right? Got to be somewhat selective, I think. All right.
Hey, thanks for answering that.
You're welcome. So, how important is chemistry among agency participants versus, I guess, chemistry with the prospects?
It's 100% important. It's 100% important. You can't allow the chemistry of the organization that's checking you out. Like sometimes they have no chemistry together because sometimes they come from different parts of the company and they don't really work together and they're just there for a committee thing. So you can't let that throw you off. You got to bring your own energy, and the only way to have your own energy is to really love one another. So this slide is really particularly important because I argue that you really need to hire executives who are going to bond, who are going to love each other for real, who are there for one another, who can finish each other's sentences. And I hear laughing in the audience. You're doing something right? Okay, good.
All right.
I'm sorry, I changed the slide on you.
That's okay. Which slide?
Yeah.
Oh,
There.
there we go. Okay. All right. I think a very interesting question here. There's two related to the CEO and the role. So if the clients want to meet the day-to-day team, is there a role for the CEO in the room?
For agencies in this room, I would argue yes. If your name is BBDO, I would argue no. But absolutely. Even if you don't take a front and center role in that meeting, and you shouldn't, there's a sign of respect that kind of goes along with that, and it's noticeable only when the CEO is missing. It's not like the CEO truly adds a lot of value to the meeting, but in other meetings, when you're being compared, and in some meetings where the CEO is not present, it sticks out.
Well, thank you. That answered actually another question, so excellent. That was a twofer.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful. Okay, there's an interesting one. So what is the role of the founder versus the CEO?
Well, sometimes they're the same person. The founder really should be building the vision of the organization. I would argue that the CEO should be building the vision of the organization as well. So I'm hoping those two things are the same. But I would also argue that beyond that, the lieutenants of the organization are the people who carry out that vision. And but a visionless founder is a weird thing.
Fair point. What do you hear? What are the things you hear most frequently when an agency wins? What about when they don't win?
Cool. When they win, well, truth is, we see it happening. We see the win happening. And so we're never surprised when the win actually happens because we watch the journey. But the reasons are always compatibility, human compatibility, that is, trust, and ability to figure out our challenges. So it's not necessary that you bring the proper solution. You can bond over the challenges just as well as over the solutions. But if you're building trust and credibility via the process, when you say I don't know because you don't know, and then you find out, rather than BSing your way through. That's really what wins. That bond is what wins. The authenticity is what wins, which is why we don't have as much theater in new business anymore like we had in the 90s. That really backfires today. That's completely inauthentic.
So save the money on the huge pitch theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is a fun one. Why won't clients provide a budget range, and do you have any helpful tricks to get them to provide one?
Clients. Well, we do our best to actually provide you with a range. So I didn't know that they were not providing budgets. Have you tried asking?
Yeah.
Well, then just it's simple for me to say this because I'm standing here and you're there, but I would just say no. Like truly, if you're getting into a new business scenario where the client is withholding information from the get-go, what are they going to be like when you're actually working together? That type of process is a last man standing process. That's a rejection process. It's not a selection process. And then you win and you don't know what you won. So why spin your wheels on that?
Okay. Are there pricing models that agencies are using that are sabotaging their growth?
Pricing models
Yep.
sabotaging their own growth. We see a lot of fixed fee, and fixed fee could be problematic because it's fixed and there's scope creep. And so as long as you have some kind of clause in your contract so that when they've blown the scope, you can get more money, it kind of doesn't matter what your methodology of being paid is. Just don't get locked in.
Good recommendation. And I think from a timing standpoint, this is probably the last one. Great. What do you recommend when new executives join the final meeting, and this is new client executives, join the final meeting but are not part of the process?
Excellent question. It's what I said earlier. Bring your own energy. Don't get bogged down because they're going to be looking at you with crossed arms and with stoic faces, and it's going to throw you off. It's not the same client suddenly. It's not the same warmth. It's not the same reception. Who are these people? That's why you can't rely on the final presentation for the win as well. That's the day they're checking off boxes in front of their CEO. They don't want to look bad either, the ones that have been coaching you along the way. So really stick to your energy, have fun together, show that you're a tight team. Because if you're not a tight team and you're dysfunctional in some way, the audience doesn't want anything to do with that. But if you love each other and are having fun together, despite what the audience is doing, we kind of want to be part of that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All righty. So we're going to do something now that I don't actually, at least my experience with MPF, which goes back sort of 9 years, has been done before. So our next presenter, Kat Budzin, is from Post. I met Kat 4 years or so ago at the ANA's AFM. She was a co-chair that year. And she's got a tremendous amount of client procurement experience. She now runs their in-house studio operation. And we'd asked her, she came, put together a great presentation, and then couldn't come. So rather than not let the content be seen, because we all felt it was really good content, is we do have a pre-recorded session, and it's on how decisions actually get made. within the client organization. Okay, so I'm going to get off the stage, and I think we're just going to roll it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kat Budzine. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today, albeit virtually. I'm very sorry I wasn't able to be with you in person. And I'm just really glad that we were able to figure out the technology here so that I could share my content with you and just give you a perspective from inside the client four walls that hopefully will help you in your business. Let's get started. Today, we're going to be talking about how decisions really get made and why you didn't win. Ever lose a pitch that you thought was in the bag? Client decisions don't necessarily work the way you think. This session digs into how decisions really get made. Who pulls the strings, what sways the outcome, and the small changes that can drive more wins and longer partnerships. Let's back up. I have a confession to make. For possibly the first time in my career, I can confidently say that I'm pretty sure I belong here. Pretty awesome feeling. And you're all pretty relieved, I'm sure. I spent the better part of my career up to this point not totally confident in what I was pursuing, yet I'd frame up for myself this idea that if I think I'm capable, then I can. I've got the guts and the grit and the stuff that it takes to do what needs to be done here. And conversely, if I think I can do something, if I don't think I can do something, it's really a self-fulfilling prophecy. You won't succeed. This action of self-belief really started for me in my mid-20s when I started what I would consider to be something that would resemble a professional career. After I tried to be a professional singer and a basketball player and a radio DJ, when I really started what I considered to be my professional career in television, I had no experience or background, but a lot of reasons not to fail. I got a chance gig as a researcher on a new TV series, fresh out of pilot. And I really grabbed the bull by the horns. I wrestled it to the ground. And within 4 years, I was the executive producer and showrunner of that show. And it's called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives on Food Network. 23 seasons later, I felt like I had really mastered the craft and decided to jump to the next mountain to climb, which was advertising production. Advertising production and agency life was another unknown, but seemed fairly similar to TV. It's production, and it's pretty much the same thing, right? They are, I found, worlds apart, remarkably different. What energized me about going to the agency and to become a producer in this environment was my ability to make an impact by being a partner that clients can trust and bring an outsider's lens to the work we were doing. And I was gobsmacked by how much time and money and people and consternation would go into creating this short little 15-second ad that oftentimes never saw the light of day, when I was accustomed to delivering a 28-minute episode every Friday to the network. I thought, let's be the best partner the client could ask for by being flexible and honest and agile and budget conscious and all the things I've learned in TV production. I gained valuable experience in multiple agency settings where client changes impacted the agency from minimal to devastating and at times eliminating entire teams. It got easy to adopt the mentality of, dumb, annoying client playing games. Oh yeah, sure, the budget got cut again, right? And become rather cynical about when on the agency side, you're on the receiving end of some pretty big decisions that clients are making on a day-to-day basis, and you're getting little to no context. These experiences in the agency space really informed how I would operate as the client, which is where I went next. When I was asked to stand up the in-house agency on the client side at Post Consumer Brands nearly 7 years ago, I was pumped. I thought the client seat seemed pretty cush, and I was determined to be the trusted partner with my marketing team and agencies, and made it a point to gain trust through regular engagement and dedication to relationship building. I'd link arms with my marketing partners to understand in detail the business problems they needed to solve, how to work effectively with agencies, how to get good at getting to good work together, how to manage budgets, how to manage the communications. And after many years of leading creative production and agency management, I become pretty savvy with budgets and scrutinizing spend and crafting strong scopes of work and managing agencies effectively. I'd seen good client behavior and bad client behavior, and how agencies' reactions to their client either sealed their fate or deepened their trust and partnership. So I was really eager to sit between the two and educate and facilitate important conversations and ultimately help each side grow their business. I was then given the opportunity to lead marketing procurement at the holding company at Post Holdings, and was very interested in how I could leverage experience on both sides of the table, ultimately reach win-win outcomes for both my client partners and the agency partners, and help each side truly grow their businesses through highly effective partnerships. Apart from negotiating contracts and achieving cost savings and sourcing the full gamut of marketing services and tools, I really spent an outsized amount of my time facilitating important conversations between my marketing business partners and their agency partners, and leading a ton of RFPs. Through the years leading those pitches and managing those partnerships, I observed what I would say is a great many missteps alongside some pretty incredible wins. So having been on the inside, I'm sharing with you today the unique perspective I've developed and that I now tap into as the leader of the in-house creative agency at Post Consumer Brands. I boomeranged back to the operating company to lead creative and operations, where agency management is an immensely important part of my role. What I'll share with you today are tips to help you win in an insanely competitive space and avoid the pitfalls many well-intentioned agencies make in their quest to win new business. And ultimately what you can do as independent agency leaders to increase your odds of winning business. So first, to be considered for an RFP, you have to be visible. If you want to be considered for an RFP or a pitch, you have to get out there and make yourself visible. Speak at conferences, host dinners, go beyond the unsolicited cold email, earn the call to be included in the RFP by shaking hands and showing the industry what makes your agency awesome. I invited many agencies to RFPs after seeing their leaders speak at industry conferences and events, and hearing their stories and case studies and really the humanity they brought forth through their presentations really piqued my interest and placed them on my list. And this is really just a drill down then. Don't underestimate the power of building relationships with clients' procurement and agency management teams. Further to what I was just speaking about, get out there and get to know the right people. There is a misguided belief among many agency folks I've encountered, both on the inside at agencies and across the table as the client, that the marketing leader is the decision maker. It's possible that in the room during a pitch or when work is being evaluated, that the marketing leader has the stature and the appearance of holding the D or the decision. Here's what really happens. The agencies invited to that RFP are often recommended by the procurement or sourcing leader or search consultant or agency management leader. So if you're not in their orbit, you're not likely going to get the call to be included in the RFP in the first place. While marketing leaders often have their sort of preferences and their POVs, they rely heavily on their agency management partners and procurement's recommendations and guidance. I would say smart clients really stay in their lane and establish the business problem to solve and the objectives for the engagement, and expect their sourcing and agency management partners to serve up the most promising agency candidates to consider. Smart agencies understand that decision making within a client organization is not exclusive to the marketing team. Every organization is different. I appreciate that. And in my experience, my marketing partners and business leaders rely heavily on me to provide recommendations as to who would be well suited to support our business need, and trust that I'm bringing the best and most appropriate roster of agencies to consider for whether it's an RFP or a pitch. So really consider who you're spending time building relationships with. And if you don't know who the sourcing or procurement or agency management leader is within the client organization, get to know them and make sure that they know you. Next, get curious. Good agencies set themselves apart by asking direct questions like, how many agencies are in the pitch? Who is the client team comprised of? Who is the key decision maker? Is the incumbent included? Tell me more about the business problem we'll be solving so we can be sure we've got the right experts on this remit and that we have the best team available to lead the work. Asking questions shows a high level of scrutiny and discernment, and that's a really good thing. The paradox of choice is real. The more options on the table, the less focused the client. So really ask the sourcing leader, the search consultant, the procurement leader, how many agencies are in a pitch? You know, if it's over 5, I recommend passing. The client will be overwhelmed, focus will suffer, and you'll be over investing with really low odds of winning. Agencies who come across as thoughtful and choiceful are the agencies I want to work with, and the agency's genuine curiosity becomes an internal selling point for me. These are the agencies that aren't desperate and show that they truly want my business if they're getting deep with questions. Next thing I want to share is really the quantity of clients matter far less than caretaking. We've all seen agencies' new business decks where the client credibility slide is displayed with dozens of logos. And I can tell you it's really not as compelling as you may think. What this tells me, this sort of logo soup tells me, if I'm a small client, is I'm going to be a small fish in a big pond. And if I'm a larger client, it kind of tells me that their agency team's time is going to be split across lots of different directions. What I believe agencies are trying to communicate in that logo soup slide is the diversity of clientele and broad experience. Instead, what clients really, really want to know is how well you care for each of your clients, whether you've got 6 or 60 on your roster. Clients want the right experts to support their brands and the level of caretaking that makes them feel important and valued. I appreciate the honest, self-aware agency leader who says, and this has happened to me before, the opportunity just isn't right for them. It's not a good fit. At the onset, they just know that to be true. I appreciate that. And I will go back to them then when I think I have something that's maybe more appropriate for them. Be diligent in your evaluation on whether an opportunity is a good fit for your agency model and whether you can truly support the client with the caretaking and the capabilities that they need. In my observation, the best and most successful partnerships are rooted in trust and a mutual growth mindset. And the way you approach supporting your client will ultimately determine whether it's a long-term relationship or a short-term stint on the logo soup slide in your new business deck. The next thing I want to share with you is really to be choiceful about how you're approaching a pitch that you're invited to. I've seen it many times where the pitch team is working closely with the client throughout the RFP process, and the client is super pumped about one particular agency. You know, the Q&A was magical. The engagement between the checkpoints is so smart and so on point. And dinner was wonderful. And then comes the pitch. And a high-ranking agency leader who's been completely uninvolved throughout the RFP shows up and steamrolls their team through the pitch. They field all the questions. They deliver much of the pitch material, answers for their team. And the client is baffled. What happened? We had such a good thing. And the agency isn't selected. Every person at the pitch table should have a clearly defined role throughout the entire process. Don't bring in a ringer CEO or a big shot leader to show how much you want to win the business. Show that through your engagement throughout the RFP process, through your smart questions, your responsiveness, your attention to the client's needs and really their problems to solve. And show it through your work, not by bringing in the agency executive that's meant to show your enthusiasm for the opportunity. Instead, protect the relationships that are forming throughout the RFP and really include only those that are needed in the pitch. This is a relationship that's being formed, and if at the last step you introduce someone who's, kind of completely changes that dynamic, in many cases, I've seen that be the reason why an agency isn't selected. When you win, keep the pitch team on the business, because swapping in a new team, much like the ringer CEO, is really a shock to the client. So be choiceful. I'll round it out with a couple key takeaways. And first, I'll say it's a really great time to be an independent agency. Big clients are choosing smaller agencies for a variety of reasons. Smaller clients are continuing to look to smaller indies for many of the same reasons. And to win and sustain business, I've got two key takeaways. Number one, get out there and be seen. Lead with curiosity and be honest with prospective clients about your unique approach to solving the client's needs that really optimizes for the work, not for the system. And number two, relationships matter. Lean into relationships. There's an account lead that we fall in love with, or the creative team that feels truly embedded in our organization because they really get our brands. It's the agency leader who takes the time to meet with my team when they're in the office. Relationships really are so crucial, and your
so good, I just can't ignore, wanting me to take you back, start all over again. The hurt is so deep, I know you'll understand. Too many memories. Oh, and it just killing me. Baby, too many memories, too many memories, and they're just killing me. Oh yeah. You say you wanna come in, sit down and talk for a while. Girl, the sweet smell of your perfume is still driving me wild. The closer you get, the longer you stay. Makes it harder and harder for me to stay away. Too many memories. That's what it is, baby. Too many memories, and they're just killing me. Too many memories. Too many memories, baby, and they're just killing me. Oh, no, 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 no. Hey. Too many memories, too many memories, and they're just killing me. Too many memories, that's what it is, girl. Too many memories, they're killing me. Oh. You say that you still love me, and you want to start anew. Deep down in my heart, baby, I do too. Let me take your coat, put your suitcase on the floor, 'cause I'm no longer afraid to let my feelings flow. Too many memories. Oh, how I used to you see, too many memories, baby. When you belong to me, yeah. See, honey, I've got so many good memories, baby. Yeah. Oh, how I used to be. Ooh, we got too many memories, too many memories. And you still belong to me. I don't know what to do about it, baby, but I've got too many memories. Don't you see? Don't you see that killing me? I'd like to take you back, baby, but I've got too many memories, too many memories, too many memories. Oh, it's just killing me. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm in a party mood. Tell me, how about you? Yeah. I'm in a party mood. I don't feel no good. Well, it's been a long, hard week. Yeah. Down on my grind. But now that it's all over,
love your new lamp. I got it on Facebook Marketplace. Look at this one. It's so you. Your nails are always so cute. Thanks, I get them from this nail art group. I need them. How'd you find this place? Facebook.
Hey Spotifyers, click or tap the banner to listen to New Music Friday. Brought to you by ESPN. Don't miss out and watch the NBA Finals on ABC and the ESPN app.
Hey everyone, it's Skylar Grey. My new album, Wasted Potential, is available to listen now on Spotify.
Hey, wanna cook up, bro? JB, it's King South, and the king of drill riding blues, Jeter Jones. We gonna put the boots on. We need all the sexy ladies to the floor. Where the Southern Soul Cowboys at? Y'all ready to ride? Well, let's ride.
I got my cowboy hat and my boots to match. I'm a Southern soul cowboy. You know them cowgirls say they like it like that. Hey, now let me
Hey, now let me see you boot, boot, come on.
boot, scoot, scoot.
Come on.
Do the boot, scoot.
Come on.
My Southern soul cowboy.
Come on. Hey,
I got my cowboy hat and my boots to match. I'm a Southern soul cowboy.
come on. Hey,
You know them cowgirls say they like it like that. Hey, now let me see you boot, 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 scoot, scoot, boot, scoot, scoot. Yeah. Hey, now let me see you boot, boot, boot. But I wanna tell you a story, yeah. It's called Too Late to Try to Do Right. You see, when I warned you and I told you these words, it's too late to try to do right, baby. You've done me wrong for the last time. It ain't no need for you to do it like you're doing, baby. No. After all I've done for you. You see, I even do without myself, baby. Love. Just to make sure I take good care of you. Help me out here, fellas. All right. I got one more thing I want to tell you about before you go. It's too late, it's too late, it's too late, baby. You done me wrong for the last time, yeah. Too late, too late, too late, too late, too late, too late, baby. You done me wrong for the last time, girl. Last time. Uh-huh. When I leave this time, baby, yes. I don't care what I leave behind. Oh! Too late! Oh, baby, well. You done And when I leave it this time, baby, I don't care what I leave behind. Hey! Oh. Too late, baby. Too late. Talking about for the last time, girl. Ah, too late. Yeah. You done it to me for the last time, girl.
When your summer plans make you feel like the main character, press play on Summer Hits 2026.
Please silence your cell phones and laptops and take your seat. The program will begin in 10 minutes.
Listen now on Spotify.
Hey, this is David Senra, and you should check out my new podcast, David Senra, right here on Spotify. On the podcast, I sit down with the greatest business founders and extreme winners, people like Daniel Ek, Michael Dell, and James Dyson. Check out David Senra now, right here on Spotify.
I'm David Begnaud. For years, I've told stories about people at their worst and at their best. But behind every headline, every success, every big name, there's usually one person most of us never hear about. It's the one who believed first. On The Person Who Believed in Me, I sit down with people like Oprah, Nick Cannon, Ava DuVernay, and Charlie Puth. And I start with a simple question. Who believed in you before the world did? The answers are personal, unexpected, and deeply human. Because no one gets there alone.
know, I'm so sick and tired of all you young ladies out there. My baby told me, stroke it with emotion. Stroke it with emotion. Oh, baby. Slow roll it. Slow roll it, baby. My baby told me, stroke it with emotion. Stroke it with emotion. Yeah. You see, y'all young girls might as well leave me alone until you learn how to stroke it with emotion. Not only do you have to move it to the left, you got to move it to the right. You got to move it all night. Listen. It ain't what you got, it's how you use it. To make her stop moaning, you sure can't abuse it. Gotta kiss her on the toe, gotta kiss her on the shoulder.
Please welcome back Matt Kassendorf.
Okay, we are in our final track called Leadership. Our speakers today are going to explore the real dynamics of scaling, succession, and building the structure needed to grow with clarity and control. So, to start, leaders are told to work on the business, not in it. Our first speaker, Aaron Walton, CEO and founder of Walton Isaacson, has done both. He'll be showing us how changing your altitude helps you recognize when to stay in it, when to step back, and how leaning into that tension drives better outcomes.
Please welcome Aaron Walton.
Good afternoon. We're almost at the home stretch. We're almost there. First of all, before I start, I do want to thank Matt, Susan, Molly, and the entire team. This has been an amazing experience for me and reinforces the value of what the 4A's really does in terms of providing insights. And the networking has been amazing, so thank you guys for doing that. I made the mistake of, excuse me, of downloading the app. That wasn't the mistake. The mistake I made was reading everyone's bio and then reading mine. And then I've got to tell you, it started to trigger some really crazy things for me, because whenever I read my bio or hear someone making an introduction about me, there's this voice in my head that's going, who the hell are they talking about? That feeling, I realize, is a version of the imposter syndrome, which I think is a perfect springboard for what we're going to talk about today, which is rethinking working in versus on the business. There was a long time going into meetings with him. He would always ask 4 questions. And if he didn't ask these questions, you knew he was thinking about it, so you had to prepare in your own mind for this presentation. He would ask, what could be better? What could be different? What next? What else? For the longest time, let's get back to my therapist for a second, shall we? Here's the first lesson that I learned from my therapist. If you're always answering the questions, you are in the business. If you're questioning the questions, then you're on the business. So right after I left Pepsi, I was there for about 7 years, and I started my own agency, AWE. And Like many of you who started an agency or have joined a small agency, you know you have to be scrappy, right? You're doing everything. There's no in and on the business. It's only about getting the work done. You are clearly in the business. And I'll give you an example of me being deeply, deeply, deeply in the business. We had just produced a event for one of our clients, and it was going extremely well until it wasn't. Right at the end of the night, I was walking out to see the guests as they were leaving, and they were kind of heading toward the valet. And I saw 40, 50 people deep, and I was like, what is going on? What is this for this crazy kerfuffle going on at the end of this? You got to love the Weston area. There was this line going on, and I was like, what the heck is going on? So I go to the valet, and the valet company that we had hired didn't think it was a great idea to make sure that when the guest came and they gave him a ticket, they actually matched that ticket with the keys. So there was chaos going on. So I run back to my staff in the venue, and I was like, okay, we got a huge problem. We're all going to go out and put on our red valet vest and help resolve this problem. So we run back to the valet station. We look in the key drawer, pull out all the keys that we could handle, and start running to one of 3 different parking lots where these cars were parked, literally clicking to see which car was going to respond to the key that we had. Found the car, drove it back to the valet, gave the keys, the car away. Luckily, we were really good at it. I will tell you, every person left with the right car. It took us about an hour and a half. But it made me realize something really incredible. That working in the business earned me a lot of trust with my team. They saw me rolling up my sleeve. They saw me out there trying to solve the problem. But I also realized that if I stayed there too long, it would limit my impact. And here's the trick. Here's the problem. Here's the trap. The longer and the better you are at being in the business, the more that business pulls you back in. You become the fixer. You become the closer. You become the safety net. And that can feel amazing because you get this adrenaline rush of like trying to solve a problem. And who doesn't want to solve a problem, right? But the trick and the dangerous part is that if you're focused on the problems today, no one's thinking about tomorrow. And what happens is business starts to stall, not because the work isn't good, but because no one's asking, well, where is this taking us? What's next? What else? I quickly understood that if I was indispensable in the day-to-day, I might not be around for the future. I ended up selling AWE to Omnicom. And after I finished my earnout, they had asked me to stay on and run a vertical in one of the divisions. The division was called Radiate. And Radiate was a collection of 40 or so experiential marketing agencies. And the vertical that I ran was the entertainment marketing vertical, so TV, film, celebrity, music. And I loved it. My job was changed. I was now on the business. I wasn't actually getting in and producing the work. I was helping these agencies understand how to develop strategic ways for them to take this entertainment marketing, bring it to their agency, into their clients, and then hopefully the clients would then buy it to help connect with consumers and generate innovative ways of working together. But that Babson entrepreneurial voice started talking to me, and I know I have a lot of voices in my head. No need to be scared. I see people leaning back. I'm fine. But that entrepreneurial voice started to talk to me. And I realized what I really wanted to do was to run something that I had created. So that's when we started Walton Isaacson, 20 years ago, actually. But this time I was going to do it differently. This time I was going to stop asking, is the work getting done? And start asking, are we doing the right type of work? I was going to stop asking about the deadlines and making sure that the staff was ready to figure out their own deadlines. Roger's questions started popping back in my head. By the way, they still do. Whenever I'm looking at work, whenever I'm looking at our business, these 4 questions continually run around and make me think about the business, help me with perspective. I also understood that this wasn't about me when I moved from in to on. It wasn't about me moving away from the business. It was literally about me changing my altitude. It was about changing the attitude. It was about perspective. I understood that leadership wasn't about stepping away from the work. It was just about seeing the work differently. It was about perspective. And here's where it all comes together. The real trick is not choosing between in and on. It's about learning how to move between them. It's about making sure that the staff understands sometimes you're going to be in, sometimes you're going to be on. I've been lucky, like many of you guys have had an opportunity to work with multiple leaders in different industries. One of the things that I've noticed, the red thread that connects all of these great leaders, is that they don't choose between in and on. They toggle. And this is where it scales. Every interaction you have with your team is a chance to teach this. You can either teach them and talk to them about problems and answer those problems for them, or you can teach them to think about it differently. I very clearly understood that if my team only executed, we were going to grow incrementally. But if I got them to think about the business, if I got them to think about perspectives, we would grow exponentially. And look, we're all works in progress. Lord knows I am. There are days where all I want to do is be in the business because it's easier, it's more productive, it seems like it goes faster. And then there are days where I have to force myself to be on the business, even when it's difficult. And look, it's difficult because it's abstract. It doesn't feel like it's going to go as fast. And it requires that I let go. But the difference now is that I make a conscious decision of when to do in versus on the business. I also have to give myself the grace. I'm a type A personality. I'm sure there are a lot of type A personalities in this room. But I've realized that maturity isn't about perfection. It's about intention. And you have to be intentional in what you're trying to do with the team. And if you listen to what that word says, it tells you exactly what it wants to be. There's in, there's on, and then there's a tension in the middle. That tension in the middle is where the leadership comes. That tension in the middle is where you have to make those decisions, those implied decisions. Sometimes you're going to be in, sometimes you're going to be out, but they are conscious decisions that you can make, and you can't force yourself necessarily to feel like you have to be in one or the other. I also had to give myself the grace to understand that just because I wasn't in the business didn't mean I was leaving the business. I was changing how I showed up for it. So, your assignment as you're thinking through how you want to approach the business, what's your reality? You know when you're too in it. You know when you're too far out of it. You know when your staff is asking too many questions for you to answer when they should be answering them themselves. And you've got to figure out where a small shift can make a huge difference for you. Back to what I originally started. It's not about making a choice between in and on. It's about having that courage and the clarity to make a decision on where you need to be. I'm out of time. Wow, that was quick. Thank you. Oh, sure.
The question is, how do you find the people you trust to allow you?
Staff, we're very diverse by design. And diverse by design is not just about ethnicity, it's also about different types of jobs that people have had. So, you know, about a third of the people at our agency have been outside of the industry, and that have taught us something. And I think one of the things, I heard it earlier in one of the presentations, I think one of the things that has helped connect all of the people in my agency is that they're all curious and they all want to learn something new. And as long as you are constantly bringing something new about yourself, about the world that we're living in, those are the people that we kind of surround ourselves with. If it's a traditional kind of agency person, it's not someone that would necessarily fit in with our team. That's not to say that they're bad, it's just they've grown up in a certain way. And part of it is instinct. You've been in the business for a long enough time. I've been doing this since 1983. And so, you know, at 65, you begin to smell out like what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please welcome Jeff King and Katie Hornaday.